The world of the 48th floor was made of glass and silence. 10-year-old Chloe sat on a small stool tucked into a service alcove, her dark blue dress a smudge of night against the pale gray marble. From here, she could see the city laid out like a circuit board, 1,000 lights blinking with lives she couldn't imagine. Her own life was here, in the quiet hum of the building's air conditioning, in the rhythmic squeak of her mother's cleaning cart down the hall. Her mother, Lena, was a ghost in this world, a 28-year-old woman who polished reflections but was never seen in them. Chloe's job was simple. Be small, be quiet, be invisible. She was good at it. She made a game of it, pretending she was a spy in a foreign country. The language of this country was money, a language spoken in hushed tones and the soft click of $1,000 shoes on stone. But Chloe had a secret language, too. A real one. Their old apartment had been next to a family from Ukraine, and their satellite dish pulled in Russian cartoons. For 2 years, Chloe had absorbed the sounds, the simple words for cat and house and run. It was another game, a secret code she kept in her head. Her mother would be done soon. 5 p.m. That was the rule. They had to be gone before the real owner of this glass kingdom, Mr. Sung, left for the day. Chloe had only seen him twice. He was less a man and more a moving shadow in a perfect suit, a storm cloud of power that made everyone else hold their breath. She fiddled with a loose thread on her dress, her stomach rumbling. The smell of the industrial lemon cleaner was starting to give her a headache. She just wanted to go home. Mr. Sung moved through his office like a shark through water, sleek, silent, and with an undeniable aura of danger. He didn't walk, he glided. His world was one of brutal efficiency, of loyalty bought and betrayals punished. His desk was a slab of black volcanic rock, empty except for a single phone. His windows overlooked the entire city, not as a view to be enjoyed, but as a map to be conquered. He was a man of immense control, yet he controlled nothing that truly mattered. He had no family to speak of, only employees and enemies. His head of security, Dae-hyun, was a permanent fixture at his side, a man whose expression never changed from one of grim vigilance. Today, Mr. Sung was leaving early. A meeting had been cancelled. He straightened his tie, his reflection a sharp, lonely figure in the floor-to-ceiling glass. As he and Dae-hyun swept through the lobby, they passed the cleaning cart. They passed the woman, Lena, who averted her eyes and pressed herself against the wall. They passed the small girl in the blue dress sitting in the alcove. To Mr. Sung, they were less than furniture. They were textures, parts of a background he paid to have maintained but never truly saw. His mind was on the transaction waiting for him downtown, on the numbers, the logistics, the weaknesses he could exploit. Down below, parked at the curb, was his car. An imported red BMW, its paint so deep it looked like wet blood under the streetlights. It was his signature, a statement of arrival, of untouchable power. The 2 guards waiting by the door, both burly Russians he'd hired for their reputation for brute force, snapped to attention as he approached the elevator. He gave them a curt nod. In his world, people were tools, and these tools were supposed to be reliable. Chloe needed a drink of water. The fountain was down a service corridor, a place of exposed pipes and concrete floors that felt like the building's secret skeleton. As she rounded the corner, she heard voices. Low, guttural, and familiar. It was the language from the cartoons. Russian. She froze, pressing herself into the shadows cast by a large ventilation unit. It was the 2 guards from the lobby, the big ones with necks like tree trunks. They were smoking, their voices lazy and confident. They thought they were alone. One of them, a man with a jagged scar on his cheek, laughed. He looks at us like we are dogs, he said in Russian. Chloe understood the word for dogs. The other one, broader and with a shaved head, took a long drag from his cigarette. Soon, the dog bites back. He pointed his cigarette towards the garage. The Krasnaya Mashina is ready, red car. Chloe knew that one. Krasnaya, the boss's car. The first guard flicked his cigarette away, a tiny orange spark in the gloom. The gift is under the driver's seat. He opens the door, Bolshoi bum, big boom. The words hit Chloe like a physical blow. Bolshoi bum. It was one of the first phrases she'd learned from a cartoon about a clumsy wolf and a clever rabbit. It was a joke in the cartoon. This was not a joke. 5 o'clock, the scarred man confirmed. When he gets in, a beautiful firework. They laughed again, a harsh, ugly sound that echoed in the concrete hallway. Chloe's blood went cold. She backed away slowly, her small sneakers making no sound. They were going to blow him up. The man who didn't even see her. They were going to kill him in his beautiful red car. And it was almost 5 o'clock. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She ran, her footsteps now loud and clumsy in her own ears. She found her mother in the main boardroom, wiping down the enormous glass table.
Mama,
Chloe whispered, her voice tight with panic. Mama, the guards. They're going to hurt him. Lena looked up, her face etched with exhaustion. She put a finger to her lips. Chloe, what are you talking about? Be quiet, baby. We can't make noise. Chloe grabbed her mother's hand, her own small one trembling. They were speaking Russian. They said red car and big boom. In the car, Mama. They put a bomb in his car. Lena's eyes widened, but with fear, not belief. Fear for her job. Fear of the powerful man whose world they were trespassing in. A bomb? Honey, you've been watching too much television. You misheard them. No, I didn't. I know the words. Chloe, stop this, Lena said, her voice a sharp, desperate hiss. Do you know what would happen if you said something like that to these people? They'd throw us out. I would lose this job. We would have nothing. Now be quiet and sit back down. Tears welled in Chloe's eyes. Her own mother didn't believe her. She saw Dae-hyun, the head of security, standing by the elevator bank, speaking into his wrist. He was the next choice. He had to listen. She scurried over to him, her blue dress a flag of desperation. Sir, she began, tugging on his sleeve. He looked down, his face a mask of annoyance. What do you want? The car, she stammered. The red one. It's not safe. The Russian men, He cut her off with a sneer, pulling his arm away as if she were dirty. The boss is a very busy man. He doesn't have time for children's stories. He looked past her, dismissing her completely. Go back to your mother. He turned away, speaking into his radio again, leaving Chloe standing alone in the middle of the vast, empty lobby. Invisible, unheard. And the clock on the wall read 4:58 p.m. The soft chime of the private elevator echoed through the lobby. It was him. The heavy glass doors slid open, and Mr. Sung emerged, moving with that same predatory grace. He was flanked by Dae-hyun on one side and the two Russian guards on the other. Their faces were blank, professional, but Chloe saw the faintest smirk on the scarred man's lips. They were walking him to his death. And they were smiling. Lena grabbed Chloe's arm, her grip like iron. Don't you move, she breathed, her own fear a palpable thing. Don't you say a word, but Chloe wasn't looking at her mother. She was looking at Mr. Sung's hand, the one that would open the car door. She was hearing the words Bolshoi bum over and over in her head. She saw the flash, the fire, the shattering glass. In that moment, the fear of losing a job, of being homeless, of being scolded, it all burned away, replaced by a much bigger, much more terrible fear. The fear of doing nothing. The fear of watching a man die because she was too small, too quiet, too scared to speak up. Dae-hyun was striding ahead to open the main entrance. The Russian guards were falling back slightly, giving their boss space, giving the gift space. This was it. The final few steps.
No, Chloe whispered.
It was a sound so quiet her mother barely heard it. Then, she pulled her arm free. She took a deep breath, the cold, sterile air of the lobby filling her lungs. And she ran. It was the most terrifying decision of her life, a rebellion against everything she had ever been taught. Be quiet, be good, stay out of the way. She was about to make a very big noise. She was a blur of dark blue against an ocean of white marble. Stop. The word tore from her throat, raw and childishly high-pitched. It was a sound that did not belong here. Heads turned. Dae-hyun spun around, his face contorted in fury. One of the Russian guards started to move towards her, to intercept her, but she was too fast. She dodged his outstretched arm, her small body fueled by pure adrenaline. Mr. Sung had just reached the curb. His driver was holding the rear door of the gleaming red BMW open. His hand, encased in a fine leather glove, was reaching for the handle. He was inches away from triggering his own execution. "Don't get in that car," Chloe screamed, her voice cracking. She didn't stop running until she slammed into his legs, wrapping her arms around them, a tiny anchor trying to hold back a battleship. Mr. Sung stumbled, surprised, looking down at the child clinging to him. "Get her off me," he commanded, his voice cold steel. Dae-hyun rushed forward, grabbing Chloe by the shoulders. But she wouldn't let go. She looked up, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with terror. "They're going to kill you," she cried, pointing a trembling finger at the two Russian guards, whose faces had now gone rigid. They were talking in Russian. I heard them. They said Krasnaya Mashina. They said Bolshoi bum. When you open the door, the specific, foreign words hung in the air, alien and sharp. Mr. Sung froze. His hand hovered, a centimeter from the chrome handle. Bolshoi bum. It was crude, but its meaning was unmistakable. He looked from the frantic, desperate child at his feet to his two guards. The smirk was gone. Their eyes were no longer blank. They were the eyes of cornered animals. And in that split second, a lifetime of trusting his instincts over the words of others kicked in. This was not a child's fantasy. This was a warning. A silence fell over the street, thick and heavy. The city noise seemed to fade into a dull roar. Mr. Sung's gaze was locked on his Russian guards. He saw the subtle shift in their weight, the way their hands twitched, the flicker of panic in their eyes. They were compromised. He had built an empire on reading men, and these men were screaming their guilt without saying a word. He slowly withdrew his hand from the car door. Then he looked down at Chloe, who was still being held by a stunned Dae-hyun. For the first time, he wasn't looking through her. He was seeing her. A small girl in a worn blue dress, trembling but resolute. "Dae-hyun," Mr. Sung said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Let her go." Dae-hyun released her instantly. "Check the car," Mr. Sung commanded, his eyes never leaving the Russians. Under the driver's seat, the two guards exchanged a look, a final, desperate signal. The scarred one lunged for his weapon, but he was too slow. Dae-hyun and two other loyalists from Mr. Sung's inner circle were already moving, a blur of disciplined violence. The Russians were disarmed and slammed against the side of the red BMW before they could even draw their weapons. One of Dae-hyun's men knelt, peering under the car with a small mirror. He looked up, his face pale.
"Sir."
"It's here." Wired to the door handle, the confirmation sent a ripple of ice through the air. Lena let out a choked sob, covering her mouth with her hands. Mr. Sung stood perfectly still, the architect of a world that had just tried to swallow him whole. He had been saved, not by his army of soldiers or his network of spies, but by a whisper of Russian from the one person in his entire orbit he had never even noticed. Later, the 48th floor was quieter than ever. The city lights glittered outside, oblivious. The red car was gone, taken away by a bomb squad. The traitorous guards were also gone, taken to a place where betrayals were settled permanently. In the center of the vast office, on a leather sofa that cost more than her mother made in a year, sat Chloe. Lena sat beside her, perched on the very edge, terrified of leaving a mark. Mr. Sung was not sitting behind his immense desk. He was on a low chair opposite them, his suit jacket off, his tie loosened. The armor was gone. He looked older, more tired, and frighteningly human. He said nothing for a long time, just looking at Chloe. He was replaying the scene in his mind. The scream, the desperate warning, the foreign words. The sheer, impossible courage of it. "What is your name?" he finally asked, his voice soft. "Chloe," she whispered, twisting the hem of her dress. "Chloe," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "You saved my life today." He looked at Lena, whose eyes were fixed on the floor. "You have a very brave daughter." Lena could only nod, tears silently tracing paths down her cheeks. Mr. Sung turned back to Chloe. Why did you do it?
You don't know me.
I've never spoken to you, Chloe thought for a moment. She didn't have a grand answer. It was simple.
It was wrong, she said.
They were going to do something bad. You're not supposed to let bad things happen if you can stop them. The simple, profound morality of a child cut through the complex, violent code Mr. Sung had lived by his entire adult life. He had built his world on the idea that power was the only thing that kept you safe. Today, power had almost gotten him killed. Compassion from a stranger, an invisible child, had saved him. He felt a cracking deep inside him, a shift in the very foundations of his soul. The next day, nothing was the same. A car, a modest black sedan, was sent for Lena and Chloe. It didn't take them to the glass tower. It took them to a new apartment, a bright, sunny 3-bedroom unit in a safe, quiet neighborhood with a park across the street. The first month's rent was paid, and the next 12 months after that. Inside, the fridge was full. There were new clothes in the closets. On the small kitchen table was an envelope. Inside was not a check, but a letter from a financial management firm. A trust had been established in Chloe's name. It was an educational fund designed to pay for the best schooling, all the way through university. It was untouchable, her future secured in a way Lena could never have dreamed. A week later, Lena was offered a new job. She was no longer a cleaner. Mr. Sung owned dozens of legitimate businesses, fronts for his real work. He made her the property manager for a small, upscale residential building. The pay was triple what she had been making. She had benefits, a title and office. She had respect. Mr. Sung did not disappear. He became a quiet, constant presence in their lives. He would call once a week, his voice on the phone always softer than they remembered. Is everything all right? Does Chloe need anything for school? He sent gifts on birthdays, not extravagant but thoughtful. Books for Chloe. A gift certificate for a spa day for Lena. He was clumsy at it, a man learning a new language, not of violence and leverage but of care. He was repaying a debt, but it felt like more than that. It felt like he was building something. For them, and for himself. He was building a connection, a small island of warmth in the cold ocean of his life. 8 years later, the auditorium was filled with the proud hum of parents and the excited chatter of graduates in their caps and gowns. Lena sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Beside her sat Mr. Sung. He was grayer now, the sharp edges of his face softened by time and something else, something akin to peace. He wore a simple dark suit, no longer the armor of a kingpin, but the attire of a proud guardian. On stage, the valedictorian was announced. With a perfect academic record and a full scholarship to study international relations, please welcome Chloe Carter. Chloe stepped up to the podium. She was 18 now, poised and confident, her old blue dress a distant memory. She looked out at the crowd, her eyes finding her mother and then the man sitting next to her. She smiled a genuine, brilliant smile. Courage, she began her speech, isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. It's about seeing something wrong and choosing to make a noise, even if your voice is very small. Mr. Sung listened, his chest tight with an emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel.
Prejudice.
He thought of the man he used to be, the one who moved through the world convinced of his own power, blind to the people who cleaned his floors. That man would have died in a ball of fire on a Tuesday afternoon. This man, the one sitting here, was alive. He was more than alive. He was connected. After the ceremony, they stood outside in the late afternoon sun. Mr. Sung put a hand on Chloe's shoulder. I have never been more proud, he said, his voice thick. Chloe hugged him, a gesture that was now natural and easy between them. I wouldn't be here without you, she said. No, he corrected her gently, looking from her to Lena. Neither of us would be here without you. The red BMW was a ghost of a former life. He drove a simple gray sedan now. As they walked to it, a new kind of family forged in an act of impossible bravery. The legacy of that day was clear. It wasn't just about a life saved. It was about a life created, a future built, and a powerful man's redemption, bought and paid for by the courage of a little girl.